share my screen. There we go. Let's hit presentation here. And that. All right. Well, oh, sorry. Obviously should have done that differently. Let me pull this over here. Why is that not? Where's the presentation one? There we go. Good Lord Almighty. Now, well, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great Friday morning here. I'm talking to you from the very hot and sunny Coon Rapids, Minnesota. I'm sure you guys probably are not getting the same beautiful weather that we are here. There. So get in here. We're going to be talking about search. So hopefully you know that Microsoft Search is the product in there. But a little bit about me. My name is Virgil Carroll. I'm the owner and principal human solutions architect at HighMonkey here in the Twin Cities. I actually originally hail from the state of Alaska, and I've lived in Minnesota now for about 25 years. And for almost 24 of those years, I've owned HighMonkey and been working in there. I've been working with websites since 1998, and I've been working with kind of workplace solutions, starting with the original team services in the SharePoint world since 2001. If you've never heard me speak, I'm huge about user experience and kind of what impact that is. So where we're going to talk about some of the administrative sides and how you kind of can use Microsoft Search to bring things together. We're also going to talk a lot about the end user side and how that experience is going to be there. Go ahead and ask questions throughout the entire process. Like Tim said, I can't see the questions, so he's going to make sure that he kind of helps identify them for me. But I'm kind of willing to stop throughout the entire process and go there. But we're going to kind of talk about what it really means for unified search and how it kind of works with the experience and how it works with systems as well. So every talk I've almost ever done in the last 15 years that I've been 15 years that I've been speaking on the SharePoint circuit. Especially, I kind of say we have to baseline about search, because search is probably one of the most misunderstood stacks in the world of technology and what it means. And we really have to baseline ourselves as far as our people and the people that use these systems, how they really think about it. And how do people really think about search? Well, user asks a question, some kind of magic happens, and the user gets an answer. And the reason that's important is because one of the fundamentals that we tend to struggle with is really building a search system, or a findability system, as I like to call it, where people can find things in an easy way. And the problem is that we kind of run against the experience of systems like Google and Bing and that have so much more to them. And it's really difficult to build those internal systems. But from an end user perspective, people really think about, well, I just ask a question and it tells me the answer. Why doesn't yours? So let's talk a little bit about it. Well, one of the big things, and I like to think one of the onuses around Microsoft Search really becoming quite a thing, is the 365 apps really became a larger ecosystem every day. I mean, every once in a while they're releasing new applications. They're always releasing new features, new functionality, all the things like that. And the install base in most organizations is growing exponentially. And the thing is that where 365 is such a great concept in kind of bringing all your business applications together, there's an interesting, challenge when you start talking about the world of search, and that saying, okay, when we start talking about a unified search, or a search that searches across everything, you start thinking about it. Well, it's hard enough for a person to find something in a small group of information, like 10,000 or less pieces of information, and to search and do that. Well, what happens when you're talking about not only now having what's in our SharePoint sites, but also what's in our OneDrives, what's in our emails, what's in 50 other different systems, and now we're searching among 10 million. Well, that really is the challenge that we have here, and it's something that Microsoft actually started to realize, that current technologies like SharePoint Search, the fast search engine that it was built on, was just not going to be what they needed to be able to deal with these much, much larger data systems and to do a better job of making sense between those things. And the reality is people are still really bad searchers. I mean, even though search technology has been around for a long time, the reality is that systems like Google and Bing and Yahoo and that, they really allow people to kind of search on anything and get some kind of result. It might not be the right result, but they get some kind of result. And the problem is that in having that type of level, that means that one of the things that's really, kind of hurt us in the world of internal searches is a lot of our internal searches needed you to search correctly to even get a result, let alone to get the right result. And so there's a lot of problems there that people just still don't have that fundamental nature, since those other systems grew and changed and adopted so well that people kind of got to stick with their bad habits, and where internal search systems tended not to keep up. And the last part is there's still this fundamental from a search standpoint that if your content is garbage and you search through that, all you're going to do is find more garbage. And that also is a very important point when we start looking at how kind of search is from that side. So what was Microsoft's solution? Well, their solution was to build a new search system based on Bing and some other components inside the Microsoft ecosystem, to really kind of be this glue, but also this level of understanding using artificial intelligence and all these different things that it uses inside of that, really to do it. But it's really bringing all these things, not only things inside of 365, but there's also powerful connectors that can bring external data out there, and what that really means kind of from the standpoint of kind of sorting through and filtering through information and having access to everything in kind of one search system. But the important thing is, and I hope the thing that you kind of really walk away from this talk, is it's not just about being able to search across everything in one interface. It's really about how that all connects together, the different mechanisms that 365 or Microsoft Search gives you to really kind of filter and understand and better interpret, and all those things there. Because the reality is that number one, one of the top problems that I said right up front was, if you all of a sudden, instead of searching 10,000 items, you're searching 10 million items, there's just a lot of challenge that goes around that. So let's kind of look at it from the standpoint of what is Microsoft Search and really what is it trying to do. Well, first, it's unified search. The end goal, and there, it's not all there, but it's coming and more all the time, is really getting a same experience across all Microsoft applications and devices. And right now it's a little bit more hit and miss from what applications get kind of a consistent experience, not only on kind of the applications, but also on the device side. There's much more of the unified search in the mobile environment that there are in some of the desktop applications inside 365. There's a lot of things there. But overall, the end goal is to get it so that if I am searching from Outlook, or I am searching from SharePoint, or I am searching from my OneDrive on my mobile phone, I'm getting the same experience. It doesn't always mean you're getting the same results, but what it means is that overall, across all 50 plus applications that currently sit out there in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, I get a predictability of interface, which from a user standpoint is really, really big. Otherwise, I might get different information, but overall, it's going to be organized and displayed in relatively the same manner, and that's really important. And that really, to me, if you look at it kind of upfront from a search experience, is going to be a huge win, because not only does the search kind of react the same way, but it also returns results relatively the same way. And so that is going to be significant from a user experience side, is that I don't feel like every different system I'm getting a different type of results and I'm having to do different things to do that. And this really will help decrease people's failure over time and provide better usability. On the other side, and anybody who had administrated search inside of SharePoint 2013, 2019, and and 2010 environments and that kind of stuff knew that one of the most frustrating things from a search standpoint was how disconnected everything was and how you had to manage things at a lot of different locations. And so finally, we're kind of getting a centralized search administration. In previous versions, you managed search kind of at the site collection level. You had some settings at the kind of the core level, but overall the search was. Now you can kind of control it much more at a centralized level, see information at a centralized level, and really do a lot of things inside there. So not only do you have centralized search admin where you can do that, you're also still going to have some of the bits and pieces where you can do things at kind of a site collection type level. You have actual analytics. And that probably in and of itself is huge. Anybody who ever looked at search analytics in previous versions knew they were downloadable spreadsheets. You had to do a lot really to interpret them. Microsoft is continuing to add more and more to the search analytics to be able to look at things. And more so than anything, it's starting to really kind of follow the patterns that other search engines do about the information it provides and what it really means. We have this concept of enterprise recommendations. We call them answers now in the search world, and we'll be talking more about those. But this is ability to kind of what I consider push technology. Otherwise, instead of people finding stuff, we're actually pushing things based off their searches. We have connectors where you can bring in external data, and we'll talk a little bit about that. You have the ability to customize your results and the look and feel from there, and then you also have some additional services that you can do from there. One of the most interesting things that's on the roadmap right now that I'm not really sure exactly when it's going to launch is also to be able to do kind of audience-based and user-centric report slicing of the analytics. So you're going to be able to eventually get a more Google Analytics type feel for the way that you do things and be able to actually look at things. Because if there's anything that I can tell you that most organizations never do or do extremely infrequently is actually look at the data that's being collected about what's being searched. And that data can be so powerful in the way we look at how to lay out search in the future, what things we might want to push into it, metadata we might want to add, misspellings, all those kind of things. There's so many pieces that kind of fit in there that analytics can really give you. And so this ability to be able to narrow down and kind of understand and gain a greater understanding of what your people are really looking for and how they're looking and where they're failing will be really huge. But it'll only be as huge as the attention you pay to it to actually make it better. So when looking at things, we kind of start talking about it. And the first thing that we kind of say is there's really the first thing that was launched as part of Microsoft Search was this concept of push technology, which has been rebranded numerous times, but now is called answers. So these are otherwise, you think of it from a search perspective, we're trying to provide you an answer without you having to leave search. And what do I mean by that? Say one of the most valuable things about using push technology, which means you're actually pushing information to the user versus saying they're finding it just through some search algorithm. You're saying, okay, I think this is similar. I want you to know that this could potentially be your answer. The value of that really is being able to help tailor and control the search process. And probably one of the biggest parts is about, we kind of have this concept of search that, okay, I need to search. Now then I found something, I click on a link, I go to that, Okay, that wasn't what I was looking for. I come back, I click on another link, I go to that. And search is really seen as kind of a throughput for my user experience that I'm doing it. Well, one thing that you see a lot more in public search engines that a lot of this push technology kind of brings in is what happens if you just find the answer here. The search actually ends up becoming the end destination. So otherwise, I'm looking for what an acronym means inside my organization, and I receive the acronym right there. I don't have to go look at other pages or anything else like that. All I have to do is just see it there. Or, you know, there's a small form that I need to fill out, and I find the form, and the form's actually right there on the search screen for me to fill out and do something or interact with some other business process in that. So there's a lot of potential around this from there. And we're going to kind of talk about each of these in here, but you know, in brief, we have acronyms, we have bookmarks, question and answers, locations, topics, and floor plans. But the important thing is right now, again, I kind of said in an earlier slide that these are only partially launched. And that right now, the best places that you can receive these results are office.com. Some of them in Bing, if you use the Bing for Business search, and the SharePoint organizational level search. And the reason I bring that up is because as of right now, if you search on a SharePoint site and it is just in the scope of that site, or a hub, it will not show any of these. But if you switch to the organizational view of that search, it will actually show these.
Hey, Virgil, we do have a couple questions. I think some of these you might get to in your presentation anyway, but just wanted to make you aware of them. So, Chris, she was wondering about roles for editing search options in M365. I think we might have answered this one, that we did find that there's a search administrator role.
There's actually a couple of I don't have a slide on that, so that's a perfect one. But there is a search administrator role. There's kind of a search editor or content contributor role, and then you have the ability to do people like you know, that could just help manage acronyms or just help manage question and answers and that kind of stuff. So there are some more granular roles there actually to assign people so that people can participate in the process but not have overall control of the system.
Awesome. And Chris also was asking about these. Said, my company has a bad habit of not cleaning up old data. Is there a way to hide those items that are of a certain age, or place it in way lower search results?
That is an amazing question. Kind of is going to be my great answer. That's just the perfect consulting answer ever. We just now have the ability to do some refinement of base search results, but mostly that's in a filtering standpoint. Otherwise, now, like if I come up with like files, you know, so you see here on my screen files, I have the ability to create custom refiners for that, which they call filters now. But as far as the files being able to change what is displayed inside the files tab right now, there isn't a solid way to do that through the user or admin. If you are bringing in external content, so you're bringing in something through a connector from an external database, another system, whatever it is like that, you actually have the ability, much like we could do in SharePoint 2013, to use the keyword query language and actually create refinements of that. And eventually in site collection level, you can actually do that where you can target specific SharePoint sites or specific document libraries and lists and that kind of stuff and dates. So you can't do that at the global level, but you do have some capabilities to do that at more of a site level from that side. Hope that helps answer that.
One quick final one.
Sure.
Does Microsoft have a plan yet to deal with the search scope in the Teams search bar when a SharePoint home site is embedded in Teams via Viva connections?
Oh, Tim, can you look and see how many people from Microsoft are in this? In that, so I just was going to laugh when you said, "Does Microsoft have a plan?" Microsoft always has a plan, but are they going to do that? It is it is something that's been discussed, but is not actually something that I've seen officially on the roadmap that they have. But it is kind of the next logical step is that you should be able to search both Teams and the hub. But I mean, you know, from that side, there's nothing there yet, and I don't know of anything in the pipeline from that side.
All right, I think that's about it for the current questions. So sorry to derail
No,
you,
that's
but
okay. Yeah.
they're piling up. I didn't want them to.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So let's talk a little bit about these answers. The first one to get launched was unified, or was acronyms. And what is an acronym? You can see here on the screen. It's that 4 to 5, whatever letter word, and what does that mean from there? This is a really common issue in many organizations. And the reason I think acronyms are really significant and something that an organization should spend time investing in trying to handle and create a solution around using the acronym piece inside Microsoft Search is this is such a common thing that people search for. And here's the thing is you can't just think of it as that acronym. One of the biggest things that happens inside a lot of organizations is that you have maybe a main acronym for something, but then you have kind of these sub versions of it in there. And I'll give you a great example. So a few years back, we worked with a banking system that had banks all over the country. And one of their banks was Arizona Bank and Trust and that. And so when we actually went out there and did discovery and that kind of stuff, we found out that everybody kind of at that bank mostly referred to themselves as ABT and that, but some people referred to it as AB and T with A and D. Some people referred to it as AB ampersand T, so AB and T that way. Some people did AB, some people did AB space T. There were a lot of different variations that basically meant the same thing. And this is one of the challenges that we run into in a lot of organizations is that they tend to have a vernacular, but inside that vernacular, there are subcultures inside an organization that say different things about different places. Interestingly enough, it tended to be that a single bank location or a single state system tended to have different language than another one around the same thing. And so acronyms really kind of help you kind of identify those, plus all the alternates to those, so that you get a more cohesive understanding. The other side that an acronym does is sometimes, especially in larger enterprises, you have one group that uses an acronym one way and another group that uses an acronym another way. So you have a lot of things. So this really is about, if I try to understand, if I'm a new employee, if I'm somebody that's just unfamiliar with an acronym or something, that I can go in and be able to search on that and actually get some kind of answer. But it doesn't stop there. Down the road on the roadmap, and what is going to happen with that is that eventually, if I open up a Word document and it has that acronym inside of it, I'm going to be able to roll over that acronym and I'm going to actually be able to get the definition right there. So you're going to start being able to get those interpretations inside other apps, or it could be inside an email or something to help you understand. And when you think of it fundamentally, if you're bringing people into a discussion that don't use the same language that you do or don't understand it as well as you do, it may start to help to bridge those gaps and help bring people into it. As an external consultant, I get brought in all the time. We do a lot of governmental work, and you know, at least the agencies I work with all like to use lots of acronyms. And part of it is they'll just start talking to me and they'll start throwing out all these acronyms or, you know, ways of saying these shortcuts. And I'll be like, okay, you need to explain this to me. This is kind of helping with that. So there's a lot of positives about it. There are a couple of negatives kind of in releasing this that is still there, is that this relies a lot on heavily on sentence structure. What I mean is you have to type in a phrase like, what is a diet, to be able to get that acronym. You can't just type in the word diet, it won't come up. You can't type it in a lot of different variations. You have 2 or 3 sentence variations that you can use right now to pull up, then an acronym will actually get triggered and pull up, which is not overly advantageous. but also something that internally you could educate your staff. If you want to do something, here's the way you say it, and that kind of stuff. And it doesn't handle similar uses real well. So right now there's kind of a hack that you can do, that if like you create two acronyms with the same letter. So if diet meant one thing on one on the other, right now there's kind of a thing where it'll show both of them. It's not really supposed to be by design, but there's that thing about kind of the differentiations and that kind of stuff and what it really means to people. That's really important. So you kind of have this, and here's an example of me typing just the word diet and kind of looking at it there and realizing that, even though back here it came up, here it didn't come up, and that's kind of one of the interesting little quirks inside the system. From an admin perspective, you can manage these all in one place, which is very powerful. So all your answers are managed at the central kind of global administrator level. And like I said, in answering Chris's question, you can actually create content contributors and that kind of stuff. But you can do that. You can give it, kind of what it is, what it stands for, a description, and then a source. And so you might say, well, what is a source? Well, a source is really to help you look at creating, tying things to, in a lot of organizations, we like to call it the single source of truth. Otherwise, this is the definitive use of this word. It doesn't mean there can't be alternatives, but overall, from a company standpoint or an organizational standpoint, or from a team standpoint, whatever it is, this is kind of how we use this phrase inside our organization, and that can really help kind of create some consistency around that from there. Probably one of the most important things, and you can do this not only with acronyms, I bring it up because this was the first one I talked about, you can do this with all of them, is you do have the ability to use spreadsheets to import and export. If you get more in depth on administering this stuff, I strongly encourage it, that you create a few in the UI, then you export it so that you can see how that is all put together, and then you can create your own and how you do the different things, and then re-import it. And that can be really big from that side in there. From that. Bookmarks kind of the same. Yes?
Oh, yep. Chris does have one kind of related question before we move too far on. About syntax, he says, can you say what is diet rather than what is a diet and still trigger the acronym search?
Yes. Yep. But there's not much variations from there. If you did what diet, that wouldn't work in that. So I probably, and for the next time I give this talk, I'll update it. There is a location inside Microsoft documentation that shows you the variations of the phrases that you can use for it, and I'll have to link that onto I'll try to do that before I post out my slides so that people have that. The second part is unified bookmarks, and this is really kind of something that has been part of SharePoint Search for a really long time. Now it's been brought into 365. It's very, very simplistic in nature into what it is. These really, I strongly encourage that you use these for quick action items. In that, some things would be like, some good scenarios we've seen in organizations, like during open enrollment time for your health benefits or particular events, that you have, kind of everything like that, or something that it's like, I want this and I want to get somewhere quick in that, versus having a lot of information in there. This is about getting it, linking to external applications. Another one, a lot of organizations kind of use 365 as their central hub, but overall they have a lot of their line of business type environments as third-party applications from different vendors. And this is a great way as somebody searching, like, how do I log into, whatever to Salesforce, you could have the bookmark for Salesforce come up and be able to go right there to the login screen. From that side. There's also some other options, timed release. So like I said, around the benefits open enrollment, or you have a particular event or a competition or whatever it might be inside your organization, you can actually set a timing that this bookmark is only, valid from this time to that time. And that can be really valuable as far as doing things not only that are time sensitive, but also doing things in advance. So you might have a bookmark that you want to have ready for something that you have starting next week, and you want to be able to do it this week. And so being able to use dates around that will really be helpful. This also, unlike acronyms, also gives you alternative ways to find, so you can create keywords around it, so that it's not only the like in this case, there's trunk monkey that you can use to find this, but I could create other keywords that could also find the same bookmark. I think pretty much when you look at kind of a pro-con scenario, really the con from this is sometimes this can get overused, and that people create way too many links, and the links don't necessarily are as valuable. Or people are really never really sure, should I use a bookmark? Should I use a question and answer? Should I use an acronym, and that kind of stuff? And that's kind of where the confusion goes around bookmarks. And so you can see here that I have an alternate way to spell it. You know, I put in monkey humor, and I have that also tied into my trunk monkey bookmark. So that ends up being a very valuable level. So from an administrative standpoint, like I said, you know, everything is pretty much standard. We have their title, our URL, our description, but really what you have is you kind of have these keywords that you can do. So these keywords could be alternate spellings. These keywords could be just different slang inside your organization to mean something, or different words that people use to describe something in there that do that. And then you have this concept here of a reserved keyword. And so what a reserved keyword is basically, the simplest thing to say is the first item to get this keyword owns this keyword. Otherwise, if I use the word trunk on this and 40 other bookmarks or a bunch of bookmarks, a bunch of acronyms, and question and answers and that kind of stuff, because this one was the one I did first, this one kind of owns that. It's reserved, and it'll only show this result here. So you really look at that as like, let's say that you had a word, you know, for like your human resources system, or your time entry system, or some location that has the definitive information around employee policies or something. You can reserve those keywords so that that'll always be the top result, and it'll always be the first thing people see. And then you have a lot of settings that you can do it. So first is you can do categories. Categories is really just for internal organization. It has no impact on the end user experience. But if you're going to be an organization that is going to create hundreds or thousands of these, I encourage putting them into categories, because then you can use the filters in the system to filter by categories and manage by categories and that kind of stuff, and they kind of give you a little bit better organizational level. And then you have settings. Bookmark settings are very interesting, and really a lot of it is kind of targeted towards large enterprises. So you can set dates, like I said, that, you know, when a bookmark starts and when a bookmark ends, that it shows up in search. You can do location. So if you have an organization that's global, or you have something set up inside your Active Directory that can really help push that, you could say, well, this only shows up at, you know, in these states or these countries, and that, which the benefit there is, if you're an enterprise organization, you may have one HR system for the Americas versus one HR system for Europe, or one for Asia, or something like that, that you could better target those kind of things. Devices, you can target devices. It's relatively basic right now, but overall you can target devices like, you know, do you want this to show up on desktop? Do you, or mobile? Do you want it to show up on Mac or PC or iOS? You know, that kind of stuff. You can target that, and really the usefulness would be in the scenario that you have something that maybe you have an application that people need to use, but is not mobile friendly, and you don't want it to show up in mobile, or maybe you have something that is specific for mobile that you don't want to show up in the desktop search, and that kind of stuff. And then the last and kind of most interesting part, probably the whole thing, is your ability to attach a Power App right to it. So you could actually attach a Power App to it and get somebody. So again, if somebody wanted to, like, you know, they search on, I want to take a vacation, you could have it come up, and it could literally link to the Power App that you use for a vacation form. So where you look at acronyms about helping understand words and you look at bookmarks as helping people get somewhere, you look at question and answers, helping them get an answer right there, and that's the end of it. And that's really how I kind of look at it from the standpoint of question and answer. Question and answer is exactly what it is. I ask a question, here's a detailed answer for me that gives it. You can see, like, this is a very simple example of when is Christmas. Okay, I did this last December, because it's definitely more than 10 days away right now. But overall, you have this facility to be able to take questions and create really short answers or really long answers. But overall, you think of this as the ideal of this is a complete experience. This is saying, I had a question, here's the complete answer. I should be able to walk away from this and not need to do anything else because you gave me the information I need. That may not always be the case, but overall, that's really what it looks at. You could link out to additional resources, but overall, this is supposed to be more about providing it. So if you need a good reference for this, you think of like in Google, where a lot of times when you're searching things, it has those little expandable accordions down there that kind of, tell you frequent questions that people ask and the answers to them there versus actually going in and needing to click on a bunch of links in there. One of the things that really has them in there is that is going to be very challenging is you really need to understand how people look for answers, the phrases they use and that kind of stuff. That's going to be kind of a significant piece in kind of helping understand how you're going to really target these in that. Somebody could call it Christmas, somebody could call it, the holidays, somebody could call it, different things like that, Xmas. You have lots of things like that you have to kind of look at that. And the other thing that kind of comes along in this is if you do a lot of date specific things, you're adding a lot of change management. So once you have kind of a complete answer out there, if that answer changes, inside the organization, you're going to have to add a layer that kind of makes sure that the answer gets updated inside this system too. So you do want to just take the caveat that this kind of adds an additional layer of change management inside your organization. From an admin standpoint, this is relatively similar to the bookmarks and what you can do. You can add your keywords and your reserve keywords, your kind of targeting via device, location, all that kind of stuff. Really, one of the biggest things that you can do here that you can't do in any of the others is you can actually create a rich text answer here. And what that means is you can use what's called Markdown. And it's kind of a way, so you could make things bold or different sizes, different colors, italics, all that kind of stuff. You kind of have those abilities to be able to do that inside here to make it much more richer in the way you present things. The other one is unified locations. And this one is kind of one of those ones that if you're an organization that have multiple locations, this is going to be extremely valuable. If you are not, this is probably not going to be so valuable for you. But unified locations is exactly what it sounds like. You're basically putting where an office or where a building, where a manufacturing plant, where whatever you want on there is located. And you're just putting some general information about it. This is really great, especially in helping out new employees, being able to find things. We've seen the implementation of this in some of our like collegiate customers and that kind of stuff being very valuable to be able to find different buildings inside the organization and that in different office locations. And that kind of stuff, or people that do it. It's very good. The real great part about it is it does bring up a very rich experience, and that it actually embeds the Bing map inside of it, and then you can click out and get directions right here, which can be very valuable. The one thing that I have that I consider a very big con with this is that you have to be very specific in your search. It's kind of almost a one-to-one relationship. So you need to kind of really understand how people would find this kind of stuff. You can see here, like I did our office location for 2016 to 2020, where we were down in Northeast Minneapolis. So from there, you need to kind of see those pieces there, which can have some big things for you. From an admin standpoint, overall, it's very similar in the way that you do it from a standpoint of administration. The one thing that I do suggest here, one thing that we've seen of great value here, is it not that internal jargon isn't used a lot of other places, but a lot of times where you may have an official name for a building, you may have a lot of alternate names or what people call it, that there may be some kind of slang, and you want to think about that from an admin standpoint. Floor plans, I don't show a user demo of this because I have tried to get it working about 3 or 4 times, and I just don't have the patience for it. And I know I have some friends that have gotten it working. I just don't have the patience for it because this is definitely something that is not for the faint of heart. You have the ability to do floor plans where you could search like by people, and you could actually see the location of their cubicle or office inside a building. This takes a lot of steps in that. So don't kid yourself. Don't let anybody tell you this is super easy. First, you have to use a draft document, a drafting document, to be able to actually do this. The second part is you have to have in your Azure directory all these offices laid out, who's tied to where, the buildings, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of structure that has to be in place. And then once that's done, you actually have to assign that inside your draft document. You can do that using Microsoft Visio, and then you can export it as a DWG file, which is a draft type file. And then the system kind of takes it from there. But if it doesn't notice anything that it can tie directly back to your Active Directory, it's basically not going to let you go forward and assign things and set things up. So this is not for the faint of heart at all. It takes a lot of effort, and it's something that hopefully down the road, Microsoft will get back to kind of making this experience better and a little bit easier for administrators. But right now, it takes a lot of effort. But on the flip side, there's a huge value of it, especially in larger organization or people that are very disjointed and don't really know where other people exist, that I could search on someone's name, and not only could I find out their general information, but I could actually find out exactly where they're located in a particular building or their office is, which could provide a lot of value in an organization. I will tell you, I have one customer that they have multiple buildings here in the Twin Cities, and a couple of those buildings or facilities in the Twin Cities, have all these different conference rooms, and these conference rooms all are assigned by a multi-digit or multi-letter / digit a code that most people can never decipher. So being able to actually find that conference room and actually see the location in the building layout by going through search could be a very big plus in that way. So I created a quick slide here just so that you could kind of use this as a reference about kind of where I see these using, so like, when do you really use this? So from an acronym standpoint, you kind of use this for organization jargon and abbreviations, bookmarks, you need to help people get somewhere, and that, so, and that, again, that could go back to line of business systems, important firms, external resources, things that you need to get people to. And then question and answer really is about trying to find or provide them with a complete answer to a question. So you could be, like, what is our PTO policy, or, how many sick days do I have, or, that kind of stuff that on a yearly basis. Those are things that you could use that could be really valuable from that side. So not only is there a lot of that kind of from the push side, and the reason I spend a lot of time on that, because that's actually very significant if you're getting into Microsoft Search up front. That's really going to give you kind of that upfront most bang to the buck. And it also is something that you have the most control over. There's a lot of things in Microsoft Search right now that you don't have as much control over, but that's one thing that you have a lot of control over. So there's a lot of power that goes into it. But on the same side, there's a lot of systems and apps and that kind of stuff, and how it kind of integrates to that. And I kind of wanted to talk about that and how it kind of brings all that together. Well, first you're talking about unifying your devices and that. And so I can't emphasize this enough. This to me is probably, when you look at it from a user experience standpoint, the biggest win out of Microsoft Search is the ability to possibly perform the same search and get the relatively similar formatted results in any application I use that's tied to 365. And that's just so big. Plus, organizations obviously can tie into the API and build their own applications as well from there. But, it can be fully integrated to Windows 10 and 11. You should have the caveat that your user account is tied to your 365 account on your laptop or desktop or whatever it is, which most people in an organization are going to have that. And you're going to be able to use inside the start menu. The search you're going to have is Microsoft Search. And so you're not only searching on your local computer, but you're also searching your OneDrive, your SharePoint, your emails, all those kind of things in that, and have access to all those in one search. And that's such a big thing. And one of the things I posited a few years back when I started giving kind of a talk and talking about this on the roadmap of coming from this, is how much that once people kind of figure this out, this will kind of bring them back to using the desktop more to be able to complete their needs. And so what I mean by that is a lot of times now people open up a browser when they need to find something because that's the easiest interface. The question is that once they start finding out or have it set up that they can enable that inside Windows and have that on their Windows environment, will people start using that start menu more to try and meet those needs versus actually always opening up your browser from there. There's also a lot of strong integration into mobile apps. Ironically, where most things in the world happen first in desktop and then on mobile, a lot of the features and functionality that have been rolled out as part of Microsoft Search have been rolled out to mobile first and then desktop after. The same as a lot of them around the Office apps were rolled out into the Office web apps, then into the Office desktop apps and that. But you have, what you can do in Outlook, SharePoint mobile, Office mobile, Teams, all those kind of things have been coming up. I'm not sure if Teams is rolled out to every organization because it only came out for us about 3 months ago. And usually, especially if you're in the government space, you tend to be quite behind on that. But overall there's a lot there. So you're getting this more and more rolled out. Eventually this will be available basically on any type of Microsoft application you're using. You'll be using the same type of search system. We kind of talked about this and about bringing in external data. There's really a lot of opportunity here, but there are some caveats with it right now. If you are a smaller organization, external connectors can be very cost prohibitive. It's very expensive for if you're just a normal tier customer, you're not a nonprofit, you don't have a enterprise license agreement or anything like that, you're looking at about $1,000 a month to be able to use connectors. And that gives you up to 1 million items that you can import via, bring in and crawl via connector. But the reality is there's actually currently no lesser tier than that. You can't do a 500 item or a 10,000 or 100,000. You have 1 million for 1,000, about $1,000 a month or not. So for smaller organizations, that may be it. There's also some credits you get tied to, like if you're using some of the Viva products or the Syntax products, SharePoint Syntax products, depending on how many licenses you'll get a certain amount of credit into your connectors, and it's all managed at the administrative interface about how many items you can actually crawl externally. But really the advantage is being able to bring external data into 365. This has always been a capability with the on-premise, but frankly, it was a relatively painful capability. You a lot of times had to use a third-party application really to get it through business connectivity services and some of the things that you could do there. And when you use SharePoint Search, it tended to have a pretty painful learning curve to be able to make that happen. Connectors, in my mind, are much easier. I actually, over the last couple of years, did a lot of testing for Microsoft as they rolled out new versions of it. If you're bringing something from your on-premise systems, or in anywhere inside your own network, you have to install an application on one server that kind of allows you to be able to access other information throughout your network. When they originally did this, it was a very heavy application, and you had about 15 steps you had to go through to make it happen. It was very painful. And then the current version, it's actually a very light client that can be installed in about 5 minutes, and the configuration is really easy. And basically, it just is a communication junction so that 365 can reach systems inside your organization, which is really there. Right now, what do you do with it once you've crawled that data? You have the ability to create that connection, kind of customize it so that you're only pulling in the data you want from that connection. So it might be certain rows out of a database, or it might be, certain folders or locations for file shares, whatever it might be. You can create a custom vertical, which is basically another one of these tabs across the search there. You can see here's kind of a picture of a custom vertical. I did that, and how the item lays out from there. Like I said, some of the cons are it can be very cost prohibitive for small organizations. There is a relatively limited out-of-the-box connectors. I think personally the most powerful one or most useful one to most organizations would being able to crawl file shares and bring that into your 365 environment. There is a huge third-party ecosystem around this. There are just tons and tons of connectors to almost any line of business system. That most of them come with a fee. You're working with the external vendor to do that, but there is a really hard there. Plus, you can also build your own if you really wanted to in that. Like I said, for the on-premise data, you do have an application layer that you do need to install. And I don't necessarily consider that a negative. I consider that a really good practice to do that kind of encryption layer so that there's less security risk inside your organization. But from the standpoint of an administrator, it's just one more level of administration that you need to do and perform on things. Managing external data, like I said, you can create filtered connections, so you have the ability to use keyword query language. And if you were doing search inside of SharePoint search, you have some familiarity with this. In using the keyword query language to be able to kind of pull in what you want. Or you can also do it that you may pull in all the data and then you create a custom vertical that displays it in more of a filtered manner, and that you can do custom metadata, so you now can map it. Just like, again, if you've done search prior to this, you can create managed properties that you can map to different figures in there. Again, that's kind of limited to how you present the information to Microsoft Search, and that Microsoft Search can understand that information so that you can create that managed property. Where if you do things like public websites, if you're crawling your public website or something, it's much more limited. There's only a few fields that you can bring back, and you don't really have a lot of customization side on that side at the moment. It does give you decent crawl feedback. So when you're actually doing the crawl, it does give you decent feedback on whether a crawl was successful or what it is and that kind of stuff. And obviously you can see that it tells you that I only have 500 items that I am able to index, but I index 3,695. You might say, well, how does that work? Well, the reality is that I did this before the licensing and limitations came in. So I've had this repository for a really long time. And that was before my 500 limit. That goes in there. So that's how I was able to exceed that. It won't actually crawl past 500 if you just have it set at 500. So it no longer updates more than 500 items in any given time. Oh, what happened there? This next one is really, the next two could be toxin along themselves. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be out in Seattle at the Office 365 EduCon in a little bit over a week now. And one of the talks I'm going to be giving specifically is about how Microsoft and Search and Viva work together. Viva is such a unique thing in that both, in my mind, it has kind of these different applications under the Viva space that don't totally relate together, but definitely one of the ones that is so super powerful is the topic cards. in there. And what a topic card is, basically, it's about knowledge management. It's about doing it. The system itself is going to somewhat find this information and say, hey, look, I think that this is actually a topic that it seems to be important in your organization based off of what Microsoft Search found. Do you think it's important? Yep, I want to adopt this as a topic card. But really, you think of this where we had acronyms to help with jargon. We had bookmarks to help getting somewhere. You had question and answers to answer question. Kind of think of a topic card as all of above plus a lot more. So I really think of it as something that you can tie all that together and really do so much more. So you have so many capabilities around that. It's just way too many to go in there. You can see right here that there's what people are involved in this topic. So one of the big pushes for Microsoft going forward is about kind of knowledge management and understanding who has that knowledge. So being able to recommend people be able to tie them to topics so that you can say, okay, if I have a question about this topic, oh, look, I can go contact Virgil, or I can go contact Joel, because they both have a lot of experience. Resources, the curated list of resources. You have what they automatically show you that they think is related to a topic, but you can go in there and actually manage your own and set the priority and what list and that kind of stuff. Plus, you can actually tie it to other topics and how that information all relates together and that kind of stuff to kind of create your knowledge network of inside your organization. And you can also add your own web parts in there. So if you've worked with SharePoint Modern, you can actually add all the modern web parts in there. And you could create call to action things, you could hero images, whatever it is, so you can kind of have a unique level of control to do these. And so really, when you think of something becoming kind of the single source of a truth, or something becoming very valuable, you could push it right there. And there, some of the things coming with it, there's going to be some refinements that you can do based on the end users. So otherwise, you could target topic cards that come up in search to particular people based off demographical information and that. You'll also be able to eventually do that based on your information architecture. So it could be that this only shows up if people are searching from these collection of sites or this hub or something like that. You'll be able to have topics that are, so if you see a person, so if I was to see myself and I was to roll over it, you'd see the topics that I'm related to on there. You'll be able to categorize these things so that we can have much more organization around this. And then probably one of the bigger ones is the ability to do some similarity resolutions around this from that side. So, and what that means is that, from our perspective, like Kentico is a content management system we work in, but it's also Kentico Experience. It's also experienced by Kentico. It's also been called Kentico CMS. These are all kind of similarities in what has happened in there. So I need to grab my Teams and just make sure. Okay, I lost it there for a second. I just want to make sure that I didn't have any issues there. Okay, perfect. All right. And then also you have Viva Learning, which is currently in development. That if you're using Viva Learning and you're actually doing things with that, you'll actually be able to search across the learning environment as well from there. So for courses and kind of curriculum that you've created inside there. The other part is SharePoint Syntax. SharePoint Syntax is the mechanism which you can tie to be able to bring in documents and actually extract metadata out of it and put them into fields and all that kind of stuff in there. And one of the biggest things there is that you're able to use that as searchability and be able to use the keywords, the metadata that you bring out as a search piece. Plus, right on the roadmap right now is to be able to use. So if you already have a taxonomy in your term store inside SharePoint, you'll be able to eventually use that and tie those together. And again, that kind of brings it all just together from a knowledge side so that everything's kind of tied and related inside your organization. So the last thing I want to kind of talk about, and then I'm going to kind of open it up for questions here, is to kind of talk about, how Microsoft Search kind of really unifies the search experience and how it kind of brings it up there. Well, the first thing and probably the biggest thing is how it brings artificial intelligence to bear inside your organization. Probably one of the most significant steps, if not the most significant step, is NLP, which is natural language processing. And being able to actually, one of the biggest challenges and something that you could do with public search engines for a long time is a lot of people search in the form of a question or a sentence. And most internal searches tend to fail that because they didn't have the capacity to do that. In bringing natural language processing through Bing into Microsoft Search, we were able to do that. So now that I could search on something like find a brewery near the office, and it could actually understand and be able to break that down and actually understand it. Also doing semantical relationships of content activities. So one of the big things that's still kind of coming in is that, you know, I could search for Brenda in marketing, and it finds Brenda in marketing, but now inside the context of Brenda in marketing, I could now say campaigns. And so it already be filtered by Brenda in marketing. So anything that had to do with that, and then it could actually sub-filter that under campaigns and be able to do much more logic around the way people search in that. How language processes and that, and being able to give more intelligent answers. You know, we already kind of talked about being able to extract topics, you know, using Microsoft Viva and that, being able to do that and learn from the language. But probably the biggest one, honestly, is the ability to do spelling suggestions. These days, you actually get good spelling suggestions, unlike what we had with SharePoint Search, which is such a huge thing. And this is really the benefit and the huge plus of Microsoft really realizing that they needed to bring in Bing as the backend, because it had years and years and billions, maybe trillions of searches to be able to learn how to better suggest things to users based off of patterns. We have a lot of content that we're bringing in. So again, when you're doing search, you're not just finding things that are traditional to that, which is files or pages. You know, you have the ability to search through conversations and Teams, but also do that from office.com. You'll eventually be able to do that from other applications in there. Microsoft right now is getting ready to roll out what's called related work. Otherwise, if I was searching on something, the artificial intelligence could recognize it and be like, oh, hey, you know what, this is similar here. Maybe this is a similar project that these people are working on, and how that could work. One of the big things is going to be able to be searched through attachments inside Outlook. But again, not just in Outlook, you'll be able to do that in other applications than that. Template searches in Office apps. That's going to be a big one for, you know, if you're an organization that has a lot of templates out there, you'll be able to configure that and be able to find those easily and include those inside your Office applications. You know, a history. So much like Google and Bing do right now, you start typing, it'll start giving you recommendations based off of that and what Microsoft Search thinks you're searching, which is a huge win because a lot of people use that. And that'll be something very familiar, including a personal query history where it'll take effect what you've been searching and bring those searches back so that you can kind of do that. I know I use that all the time in the public because I'm like, okay, I can't really remember where this page was that I found on this particular issue, but I kind of remember what I started typing, and I'll start typing it and be like, oh, hey, there's the search that I did. Okay, let me go to that. And then it'll also be bringing in things from the dynamic side of 365. I think CRM's first, but some of the ERP systems and that, it'll eventually be bringing that all into the search system. The people side is really cool if you've not really looked at it and you've not done a search. The people cards are actually very powerful, and as you get more and more effort to be able to do stuff with them in there. But really, you know, especially a lot of my enterprise customers have a lot of pain points around, you know, not only just trying to find people, but the cost of not finding them. I did a study a few years ago for one of my customers where we looked at the cost of them not realizing that somebody down in another building had the expertise they needed, and instead they had to go out to an external agency or something like that to bring in that expertise because they didn't even know that expertise existed in there. So there's a lot of things about how people could be tied together and better share information inside your organization. You'll be able to not only find people by their name, but also by the topics maybe they're tied to, the interests they have, information in their profile, and all that kind of stuff. And it's really going to help you kind of interconnect with an organization, especially in today's world with a more remote workforce. I know we're all doing video calls and all that, but sometimes I get comments a lot of times from customers about how they very much know a lot of their colleagues in other places less. And what they actually bring to it. And that eventually will be like a full people-centric search, kind of a people type search interface that you can kind of look at that. And that's just starting to roll out now. Multimedia is another area that's being brought in. Microsoft recently released image search a few months back, where you can actually search across images across your entire organization, and it includes the metadata and everything like that. You have the automatic transcription services on any audio and video that go into OneDrive or SharePoint or Microsoft Stream. And really the huge value about that is really twofold. Number one, from a search standpoint, having the transcription service automatically done so that it transcribes it into text. That text gets added to the search. So therefore, you can actually find things that maybe are buried inside a video, because that text has been surfaced now and something that search can actually understand. But on the other side, if from an inclusivity side, that information is really going to help, because when you play it back in a player, it possibly can do closed captioning based off that transcript as well, and that kind of stuff. And then even better that now we kind of have this modern media search inside of the newer versions of the Office apps, where you can search on something, find a PowerPoint slide, and insert that PowerPoint slide directly into that. And that PowerPoint slide could be from your email, it could be from 365, or SharePoint, it could be from OneDrive or from some other system, and actually bring that in and be able to do that and include it into what you're working at that moment. So I finished about 4 minutes before I thought I was going to, which is perfect. So I am going to kind of break there and open it up for questions from people. And we have about, I guess we have about 18 minutes for questions, but probably take questions for about 10 minutes. And then if we don't get any more, then we'll allow people to take a little stretch break before they move into the next session.
Thank you very much, Virgil. There were a couple here I've been kind of holding out here just because of the end. Laura has asked, would you recommend using only topic cards or using them in conjunction with other search tools, Unify acronyms, Q&A, bookmarks, etc.?
All of the above. And as a matter of fact, I would strongly recommend staying away from topic cards until you have the rest, because topic cards really kind of are all of the above combined is really, I think there's a lot more to it, but I think that's kind of a simpler way for people to kind of think about it from that standpoint, is kind of everything combined together. I think topic cards are really powerful, but there's two things you need to think of. One, you have to have the licensing inside your organization for Viva, which could be a limitation for some organizations because it's not tied, it's not tied to your 365 license. It's something separate. But on top of that, even though Microsoft gives good suggestions in those areas, overall, to really produce topic cards that are quality, you really want to kind of think about what you're doing and how they interconnect and all that kind of stuff. With a lot of my customers, I've said, let's start here with the basics, things that are much easier to define, and go out to the business units and define those. What are the acronyms you use? What are, things that you frequently send people to? What are questions you frequently get asked, and that kind of stuff, and kind of build that, and then get Viva up and running and get those recommendations, because those recommendations will only come to admins. And then build those over time as you see things even from analytics, where you see something that is a Q&A that gets a lot of traffic, then you're like, well, maybe we need to take that and not only provide the answer, but also provide this other information and who the people are from there and that. So one college we're working with right now is actually doing the topic cards as more like departmental things, like departmental landing pages per se inside there.
Awesome. And we do have some actually really great conversations going on in the chat. Thank you guys for participating. But Chris Shu has a couple extra questions here. He's curious both how would you mark a document as a template? And then additionally, can you customize the people card to add additional fields?
As of right now, well, the mark a document as a template. I'm not totally sure on that process. I haven't really looked at that. I mean, I know that like if I'm in Word, I can I'm sorry, I can save a document as a DOT, a document template, but I'm not 100% sure how that all fits into the modern media search. I could probably find that out and get back to you. But on the other side, when you said right now on the people cards, you don't have any administrative capabilities. There have been talk about that may end up happening, but overall right now, kind of that's being pushed by who it is, or yeah, by what Microsoft does.
One more here, and then I'll make sure if anybody has any additional questions, make sure you come off mute or throw them in the chat here when there's a break, whatever we'd like to do. And additionally, remember that we are doing the giveaway at the end, so hang out for that too. But Donna is wondering, do you think Microsoft is going to develop SharePoint search to the point where PNP search parts are no longer needed?
Donna, talk to me in 10 years. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the intention. I mean, there's no doubt about it, and they're doing things to do it, but it is taking a long, long time to get there. And, I mean, the reality is there's just so much scope and so much that you can do around Microsoft Search. And, I think an organization like Microsoft always kind of balances their need to continually add new stuff to be able to market to new organizations and sell things versus doing a better job of supporting their existing customers. They have definitely, if you've paid attention to the roadmap from this Microsoft Search side, this talk compared to the one I did in December, which was of a similar nature, is probably the most updates I've given of new features that actually exist versus me always saying this is coming, this is coming. So they're moving faster now, maybe with some of these things, but I think eventually that's going to be the case. Right now, I would say that where I do a session on how to customize the search results inside of Microsoft Search, it is not for the faint of heart, and it's not an easy process, and it's extremely limited in nature. And they have some things to do there. So my answer would be, I hope they get there soon, but I'm not going to guarantee that they're going to get there fast.
Perfect. Jessie just chimed in. She says, we've heard feedback from our business users recently that when searching in SharePoint Online, they get results returned to procedures documents that are 20 plus pages, and they don't have time to read through that in front of a customer. They want a quick Q&A they can read in less than 30 seconds. Is there a way to use any of the search refinement options discussed today to build out that Q&A quick search result?
I'm going to answer this question the way I think you're asking it, Jesse, but you can tell me if you're asking it differently. So you're saying that people are trying to do something in front of somebody and they're searching for it and they're getting this large document that they don't want to look through. What they really want is a quick answer to their question. And I absolutely say yes. Now, when you say quick answer search results, you're not going to get multiples of those. You're going to get one based off the question that you ask. But yes, absolutely, you could work with whomever this is and really kind of develop a list of those type of questions, and then have it that they're people that are going out in front of the customers, whether they're internal or external, and really kind of just type those in and be able to get that answer right there. There'd be definitely a lot of planning around that, but it's completely possible to do.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Hi, I have question that's kind of long, so I didn't write it down in the chat, but I kind of caught the your demo of searching building and getting directions in your presentation.
Yep.
Now, what I was interested in was can you add more information like hours? What time those buildings are open and closed, and are they open during the weekend? Um, and more information than just directions to that building. I guess just a lot of more
You
information that's
can,
available.
but they just have a description field for that. Right now, there isn't, it's not separate metadata, so it would potentially, because it's in the description, influence some of the search capabilities, but overall not to the level of being able to really do like a well formatted,
Okay.
from there. It's going to be kind of more, you're going to put that in the description that this building is open from this time, that time, in there. So there's not really like a searchable mechanism around that. If I'm guessing that's why you asked that question, which I agree is completely useful. But right now you would just have to put that in the location description field.
Oh, okay. So you have to find this building first and then find out when they're open rather than finding locations based on certain criteria during open hours or things like that.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, technically, could you probably do it with some kind of keyword setup? Yes. I'd have to probably try to tie it, and the biggest risk you run there is that the logic isn't really built in to understand the way people format times and or dates and days and that kind of stuff. So there's probably a lot of pitfalls there, but technically through the keywords, you could potentially do something like that. I just would probably need to sit down and try it and see how hit or miss it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anyone else? Well, you can still think about it. I'm going to move on to giving away the $25 gift card real quick. But if anybody has anything additional that they think about, feel free to come off mute, drop it in the chat, however you'd like to do that. Give me a sec here. Well, I have my fancy wheel picker here. I'm going to share out. All right, and I did make a selection of the people that have been participating in the conversation. Thank you. It's one of the I've been moderating a lot of these sessions. Very active chat, very active, a lot of questions. Great feedback. Thank you very much. So I will spin my magical wheel so you know I'm not just picking somebody. And Tom Salmon, you are the winner. If you would, Tom, if you wouldn't mind shooting me your email, I think I can pull it from here. But just if you have a particular email, and if you are eligible for giveaways, let me know. Otherwise, if you're not, we can also make a donation in your name. So, thank you very much, guys. Any other questions or anything for Virgil?
I saw one there, and I was just gonna um, copy and paste it in here, and it is the official Microsoft one. There's not, I mean, there's a lot of blog posts that people did and different things like that, which is kind of a more extensive list of probably things. But overall, I actually do find the Microsoft search documentation pretty good. Compared to probably a lot of their documentation. It's pretty thorough and really walks you through a lot of things that I think would be helpful.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I think we got about 7 minutes. Thank you very much, Virgil. It was a super great presentation, and I think the audience really appreciated it too, just based on the participation. So, thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate you having me in that. So I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the workshop day.
All right, great. Thank you. 10:30 here, guys. We will be doing. Oh, it's terrible that I don't know what the next session is, but I've been hopping in and out of them. And okay, so we have demystifying power platform licensing in this channel at 10:30. I'm going to drop the admin workshop day board if you guys want to review in the chat to see what the sessions look like. There that is. And Yeah, thank you very much, and we'll see whoever is here at 10:30, but we'll get a 5-minute break here.
Thanks, Tim. I'm going to sign off.
All right, thank you, Virgil.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.